Are you loving this podcast? Or do you wish there were certain things that I addressed and talked about, certain guests you'd love to see? I want to hear it all, the good, the bad, the ugly, the amazing. I want to hear your opinions so that I can help create even better content in 2024 to support you. That's why I'm here. The survey takes about 5 minutes, and to thank you, as an added thank you, you will be entered into a drawing for $100 and a fuel gift box. Plus, I'm going to do some other smaller prizes as well. The survey is open until the end of November. Please take 5 minutes and go to foodbizsuccess.com/survey. It's completely anonymous, and then you will be prompted to enter the giveaway if you would like to. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this so that I can make Food Business Success and everything inside of that container even better in 2024. Thank you so much. Welcome to Your Food Business Success. This podcast is for early stage entrepreneurs in the packaged food industry ready to finally turn that delicious idea into reality. I'm your host, Sari Kimbell. I have guided hundreds of food brand founders to success as an industry expert and business coach, and it's gotta be fun. In this podcast, I share with you mindset tools to become a true entrepreneur and run your business like a boss. Interviews with industry experts to help you understand the business you are actually in, and food founder journeys so you can learn what worked and didn't work and not feel so alone in your own journey. Now let's jump in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I hope you guys are having a great week. It is December. Oh my gosh. How are we in the last month of the year? It just comes so quickly, especially with the holidays and the rush of everything. And as you guys can probably hear, my voice is almost back to normal, but it's still a little struggling here. So I'm going to keep this one pretty short, but it's going to be jammed packed because I got some good stuff to share with you guys. Today, it is all about going 10x. And what does that mean to set 10x goals? Now, I have talked around this. I've talked about different concepts. So you probably heard me use the word 10x, but you may not know what does she mean by that. And so I want to dig into what does it mean to set bigger goals that feel impossible, that are exceptional or extraordinary, and why these are actually way more effective than just setting realistic, tiny little goals. You're like, yeah, I can do that. I can just 10% my revenue, or I can just 10% my accounts. I'm going to offer some really great examples in this podcast that'll help illustrate why you want to set these 10x goals and why it makes it so much easier to get so much closer to that rather than just setting these small, realistic goals. And many of us are kind of trained to, don't shoot too big. Don't make it too big because then you're going to fail. Then you're going to feel like a failure. And instead, we want to go bigger. It's like, what is that quote? I'm going to probably butcher it, but it's like, shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars. That's the concept with 10x. And if you're listening to this podcast in the week it comes out, I do want to make sure you know that I am running a free 10x goal workshop. It's on December 13th. And you can come for free during the live workshop. It will be available as a paid replay. And you definitely want to come live because we're going to be giving away some really great prizes and you get to ask me questions live. And of course, I will include a fuel gift box in there because I love giving those away, and it supports people in fuel and it supports a scholarship fund, which is so fun. And if you want to get registered for this 10X workshop, or if you're listening afterwards, you can get the replay by going to foodbizsuccess.com/10X. And I would love to see you there. We're going to actually dig into how you do it. What are the key concepts to actually go 10x? But today I want to talk about why 10x works, why this concept works so much better than just setting those realistic goals. So think about a goal you have. Now, I will say that generally speaking, I like to use 10x when we're talking about once you already have a business. Once you are launched and you have started taking in revenue. That's not to say that we can't set 10x goals for the launch of our business. And maybe you set a goal around the launch, like the timing of it or the revenue that comes in the first couple weeks or something like that. But I do find the concept to probably be the easiest to understand around I already am in business. What is that 10x goal that's going to get you really excited? And I want to give full credit to inspiration for this 10x concept. The first being 10x is easier than 2x. And I'll put the link for both these books in the show notes. Highly recommend this book. I did a mastermind with the author, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, back in March. And it's all based on Dan Sullivan. His concepts around 10x is easier than just going 2x. And Dr. Hardy does have a great YouTube channel you can check out and listen to more of these concepts that come from the book. He's been on a number of podcasts because the book just came out this last year. So it's been around and it's fun. I got so into it in the spring because I was in this mastermind and I got to read it ahead of time before it actually came out. But now I'm hearing some of my clients talk about it before I've even mentioned it. Friends are reading it and they're getting so much out of this book. So I highly recommend it. I have all the different kinds of copies, but I've been re-listening to the Audible version and it's very cool. It's nice to listen to it. But Dan Sullivan, they have an interview at the end of each chapter, and I love his additional insights that you don't get those inside the book. So I do recommend listening to it. And then you might find that you'll need to get the hard copy as well, or the digital copy to reference some of the points that he talks about. The other book is called The 10X Rule, and it's by Grant Cardone. And I was just re-listening to that as well. And he's pretty fiery. He's maybe not for everyone, but he came out with that book a number of years ago. It might be 10 years ago. But it's kind of a classic around why we need to make our goals bigger and taking the action required for that big goal. So I want to give full credit. I'll put the link in the show notes for both of those books, and I highly recommend them. So let's talk about why 10x is way more effective than just setting a 2x goal or something that's very realistic. It comes down to physics, frankly, and this idea of push versus pull goals. So when I talk about physics, I mean inertia. Something we hopefully learned in high school, like kind of vaguely. I was not that into science, admittedly, but I do remember this concept of inertia where the hardest part is getting started, right? If you're going to push a car from a dead stop, it takes way more effort and energy to get it going. But once it's going, then it's fairly easy to keep it going. So hard to get started, but then once in motion, it tends to stay in, or it does stay in motion, I guess is the law of inertia. So a lot of us set these smaller goals that they just don't feel compelling enough to actually get started. They're too small to really fire us up. It's like, well, I mean, I can do that anytime. So I don't really need to start that change and get the car moving. A lot of times 2x goals, realistic goals are based around shoulds. And it's about keeping us safe. And all of my high achievers, which I tend to work with a lot of high achievers, we actually purposely kind of limit our goals because we don't want to feel failure. We love getting the gold stars. We love feeling the high of accomplishment. And so we actually don't set bigger goals that are as compelling. And so there's a lot of like pushing. It feels hard. It feels like a grind. You're like, I got to muscle this to get to this next goal, to get my gold star, to feel like I accomplished it. But we make the goal mean something about us. It's when I achieve this goal, no matter how frustrating it was, no matter how much I hated it, now I can feel good about myself. Now I feel accomplished. Yes, I did it, right? But that accomplishment wears off pretty quickly. And for many of you, you know this very well. You're like, okay, cool. Yeah, I did it. What's the next thing? We don't even stop to celebrate. And then we're finding the next thing that we feel like we should do. And I had a client once a couple of years ago that she was tracking along. We did some great work together. We really created some good foundation for her business. And she originally had this goal for her year of, I think it was like maybe, I don't know, 250,000, something like that. And she was like, I'm on track to hit that. I was like, amazing. And it was maybe September. And I said, what do you think about making this goal bigger? Like, let's double it. Let's go after 500K. And she was like, no, no, because I don't want to experience, she was avoiding the emotion of feeling disappointment or failure if she didn't hit it. And I was like, yeah, but if we go after 500K, you're going to blast past 250. Now you might not hit 500, but you will get a lot closer. You're definitely going to exceed the original goal. And she just was like a no. She could not bear the idea that she would feel failure instead of success. Like she would have gotten so much farther, but she wouldn't have hit that. Potentially, we don't know. Maybe she would have, which would have been amazing. But we don't make goals mean anything about us. I believe in this 10X philosophy is you make the goal bigger to grow you, to stretch you, to see what's possible. And a 10X goal should feel more emotional resonance. It should be the pull. It's pulling you forward versus you pushing it just incrementally. Like, let me just grow my sales by 5% or 10%, and that's good enough. Or everybody tells me this should be the goal. And what we want is to create something that feels really juicy, that feels like, oh my gosh, that would feel amazing. And it's not always in numbers. And sometimes with my high achievers, I'm like, actually, this needs to be more about a quality of life rather than just hitting some big number. And so what I do inside Master Your Business and with my one-on-one clients is we create this end juicy goal. And it's not necessarily in a year, because a year is it's short, even though we kind of think it's long. We underestimate how much we can do, or we overestimate, how much we can do in a year, and we underestimate how much we can do in a longer period of time. And so I really like to set maybe more like a 3-year goal, 3 to 5, and say, what does it look like? What is this business? Like, what are you so excited about? You are jumping out of bed every day because you have built a certain lifestyle for yourself. And yes, that's going to include a certain amount of revenue. That may include employees. That's going to include a certain salary. But let's create this juicy vision that you're like so excited. It becomes a magnet. You're like, I gotta get up. I gotta try things. I gotta focus. I'm so excited to get after it, instead of something that's just like, okay. I mean, I could do that, but maybe I don't need to get started this week, right? It's just not compelling enough. And I did this actually just the other day with a potential client, and they are where a lot of you wish you were. You're like, oh my gosh, that would be living the dream. And it's so funny. She's like, yeah, I forget that. I forget how far we have come because you're always looking for the next thing. And so just stopping for a minute and recognizing like how far they had already come as a business, and they'd already gone 10x in many ways. And then she had a pretty small goal for the year. She's like, well, I think we can, it was maybe 20% increase in revenue, but I could tell it was just not that compelling. And what happens is in our brain, we're like, I can't work that much more. I'm already tired. I'm already hustling. And so in a lot of ways, we actually start to avoid it subconsciously. We might procrastinate. We're not taking the action that is required because part of us is like, I just can't work that much harder. Like, what are you doing to me? We kind of rebel against our own goals. And I've certainly done this as well. And so what we did was, let's create a vision. Let's paint the vision of what this 10x life looks like for you 3 years from now, 3 to 5 years. And it was really interesting to watch the change in her energy and her body language as we did this. And we basically 10x the goal. Let's just say they did, and this is not the real number, but let's say they did 200,000 in a year. And I'm saying, hey, in 3 to 5 years, let's go to 2 million. And she was like, oh, that's big. I'm like, yeah, I know. And what does 2 million look like? What does that get you as far as revenue? What does that get you as far as your lifestyle? How much are you working? Where do you live? What are you able to do in this kind of a business? We have to go bigger. And watching her shift to like, ooh, that's fun. I want to go after that. And we start from impossible and say, what would need to be true for this to be possible? We take the impossible, and what the beauty of a 10x goal is that it helps define the path. It helps narrow the focus, because if we were just going to add 10%, say, and we're like, or even just 2x it, like let's go from 200 to 400. It feels like, oh, I just have to work doubly hard. And that's, whether that's possible or not, but it feels like a grind. It feels like a push versus what if I want to go to 2 million? Well, there's a lot of ways you can double. There's not that many ways that you can get to 2 million. It forces us to constrain. It forces us to look at what are the things that are working, and let's double down on that. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, and she totally resonated with this. She was like, yeah, you're right. That we're like, we'll try this and we'll try this and we'll try this. And somebody said I should do this. And we try a whole bunch of things, but we don't get things over the finish line, or not that many. And we don't put all of our effort into the things that really get us bigger returns. And when you're just 2xing, when you're just like, I'll just grow it a little bit more, then we're not as focused. There tends to just be a lot more vagueness, a lot of task switching, a lot of half-ass work that actually doesn't even get us the results. And if we do get the 2x results, it's through a lot of effort. It's through a lot of pushing. Because going to 2 million is going to require just a couple of activities that require a lot of focus. And in Grant Cardone's words, you're going to have to take 10x massive action. And we don't even know what that kind of action looks like. It's like how much it actually is going to be, but you are going to go bigger. You're going to take bigger risks. You're going to be bolder. You're going to make investments. You're going to double down on things and be like, let's go all in. And you can see just from that focus of your attention that the potential to far exceed the 2x, and you're super excited about what the end could look like for you. You're really bought into that emotional 10x goal. And Dr. Hardy talks about in the book that 10x goals, they create 4 things. There's a bigger sense of purpose. And I did a podcast, I think this last summer, about purpose over passion. Passion fades. Passion is the big explosion and then it goes out. But when we have purpose, then we can have consistency and we're consistently taking bigger and bigger action. And we feel so compelled by the end vision. Like there's purpose here. I'm willing to look like a failure. I'm willing to put myself out there. I'm willing to be rejected. It increases our self-confidence. And I think that's just because we're so committed to the purpose and we're taking action and we're not as worried. We're not so attached to the failure as learning from it and like, okay, that worked. Here's what did work. Here's what didn't work. Let me go apply this. And as we continue to take action, we're going to feel more confident in that. It helps overcome procrastination. I've talked about that already, that 10x goal is going to get you up off the couch. It's going to get you off of social media. You're like, I have big things to do. I got to get to work and I'm excited about this. I got to take bigger, more massive action. And ultimately, 10x goals lead to much higher, he says, extreme satisfaction. Again, when we set these little goals, oftentimes by the time you even get there, you're like, actually, that wasn't enough. Let me go for the bigger one. But in going after 10x, you are going to have to become a different version of yourself. You're going to have to say no to things. You're going to have to raise your standards. You're going to have to get really focused. And you are going to have to change. That is part of going 10x and becoming the kind of person who goes from 200 to 2 million or goes from 10 accounts to 100 accounts. One of the stories I love to tell around 10x is talking with Maggie of Dos Margarita Salsa. We were talking last year at Fancy Food and she said, yeah, my goal this year is 10 new wholesale accounts. And I probably made a face because she was like, what's up? What do you think about that? And I was like, that's just not compelling. Like, are you going to get into massive action because of 10 accounts? And she's like, no, because I kind of feel like I could just do that in a month or like I could do that anytime. So let's make the goal bigger. Let's 10x it. Let's go to 100. Now, what is the action required? And how do you have to work smarter, not just hustle more? You can't hustle your way to 10x. And she was like, you're right. I feel so much more excited about it. And I'll tell you, and she would tell you this too, like she's not there yet because what we can do in a year, again, we overestimate how much we can do in a year. But I said, who cares? Let's just extend the goal. But she surpassed 10 accounts in like May or something. So she's well past 10. She's not to 100, but she's keeping the goal and we just extend the timeline and we don't make it mean anything about her. She's not like, oh, I'm a failure because I didn't hit 100. Actually, I'm a winner. Look at how I closed the gap. I blew past 10. And I don't know the number. I have to ask her what she's at now, but it's more than 10, which is so cool. I want to give you a couple of other examples. And one that I will use that's very relevant right now is we have our fuel boxes and we set a goal. Now, I would actually argue this is maybe more of it's a stretch goal, but not a 10x goal. So Maggie doesn't know this because Maggie helps me with the fuel boxes. But in my mind, I think we sold, I don't know, maybe 10, 20, something like that. I am 10xing that goal in my mind. I'm like, let's get to 100 or let's get to 200. And I am operating from, what if we sold 200 boxes? What is the massive action that I need to take to get to 200? Now, we might not get to 200, but our current stretch goal that Maggie has for us is 50. And in my mind, I'm like, we can blow that out of the water, right? What is the action I need to take? And that really forced me over the Thanksgiving weekend to do more reels, to do more posts, to reach out to all of you through email, to talk about it on the podcast. I'm like, what is all the action I need to take? And am I willing to risk somebody saying no, somebody rejecting me? I sent a lot of personal texts to friends and family over the holiday weekend. And I just said, hey, I just want you to know about this. And it would mean a lot if you were able to support this, and no pressure. I always want generosity to be at the front of everything we do. And I'm not don't feel any guilt, but this might be something that you're interested in. And this might sound really fun. And you might have the perfect person to send this to. And I'm willing to make that offer because I believe in that 10x goal, right? Let's get to 200. I am willing to be rejected. And some people texted me back and they're like, that's cool, but no. And I was like, that didn't feel great, but I was willing to feel that emotion because I made the goal bigger. And so we're doing all sorts of cool things. And I would love for you to support our makers. There's 15 amazing makers. And you can go to foodbizsuccess.com/fuel box. And you can go and grab a box for yourself and go support these makers, or send it to somebody who would love to receive a foodie gift box. And we, as part of this 10X, I was like, hey, Maggie, what if we actually did the big box? What if we had a box that included all 15 products? And she was like, oh, because our biggest one was 6. And she's like, that's cool. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Right. And so she figured it out, to her credit. Another example from my life and my business is when I started the year, I had a goal of 200 Fuel members, 200 new members. And that felt big to me. It probably was like a doubling my goal from the previous year. And I was like, yeah, 200 members, that'd be amazing. And then when I participated in Dr. Hardy's mastermind, I followed this 10X rule and I 10X'd it. And I was like, okay, 2,000 members. Well, that feels kind of impossible, but it feels really fun. Oh my gosh, right? Who would I have to be? What would I have to change? How would I have to show up differently? What are the bigger levers that I would have to pull? I can't just do one-off things here, one member there. I need to think about, how can I get more leverage? How can I pull a bigger lever that's going to create more members quickly? And I have not reached that goal by any means, but I have taken more action because of that goal. And I'm doing fun things, like many of you have found me through some book giveaways that I've done with some key partners. I would not have made those offers and asked those partners to work with me if I didn't have this bigger goal. Because I was like focused on, what are the bigger levers? How can I get more people knowing about me? How can I get more people on my email list? How can I get more people reading the book? Because when you read the book, then I know my stuff, and it's really digestible, a little food pun, and it gets you to know, like, and trust me, and you're more willing. And I have had more people that are like, yeah, let's try out Fuel. Let's go. I am curious. I want to work with you more. And so I'm not there yet. I'm keeping my 2,000 member goal for 2024, and I'm going to be, consistently being like, where can I show up? Where can I do talks? How can I reach other people's groups? How can I get more people excited about this? What kind of offers can I put together? What do people most need to hear? And yeah, I'm going to hear a lot more no's, but I'm willing to go after it because it's compelling and that seems so fun. And I would have to change some things. I would have to maybe add more calls at 2,000 members. I might have to change some of the infrastructure. Got me thinking about, well, what would I have to do to be able to support 2,000 members? Probably have to hire somebody to help with customer service, things like that. But it gets me excited, and it does narrow the amount, like what are the actions? What are the strategies that I'm going to employ and try to get bigger leverage? So those are some examples from my business. And for you, we've already talked about if you did $5,000 in sales this last year, then make it $50,000, right? What would that look like? How cool would that be? Wherever you're at, just grow it, right? It could also be like we did with Maggie, where it was 10 accounts and let's do 100. It could be followers. It could be repeat purchases. There's a lot of things that you can 10x and just find something that feels really compelling. Now, some of you, it might actually be decreasing. It might be, how do I have 200 free days a year? And that I'm actually working less, but maybe my revenue stays the same, or maybe I grow it by a certain amount, right? Maybe I go from 2 to 5, but I'm actually taking more time off. We want to find these scenarios where we're like, that's impossible. Not capital I impossible, but like lowercase impossible. That feels a little crazy. What? Grow, more than double my revenue and work less? How would I do that? What would need to be true? Well, you'd need to have a really good foundation. You need to have a really turnkey business that operates without you in the middle of it, without you doing everything. And that's exactly what we do in Master Your Business. So a little shout out that Master Your Business will be coming back for enrollment in January. And I highly recommend you get on the wait list because they offer some awesome bonuses for folks on the wait list. And if that's a goal for you, you're like, I actually do want more freedom, because that's probably why you started a business in the first place, was to have more freedom of time and money and relationships and purpose. And that comes from Dan Sullivan in the books, 10X is easier than 2X. But that's probably what you want as an entrepreneur. It's why you even started a business. And then we get so chained to the business. And we have to work all the time. And we are the only ones that are in the center pulling all the levers, instead of creating a business that runs without us, that we can extricate ourselves and we're not so like smushed into the business. I have this great photo of this koala baby on a mom koala, and like the koala is just like smush, like, tight. And it's like, this is your business and this is you. And we want to create more autonomy. We want to create a self-managing company that runs whether you're there or not. And so that could be a 10X goal. And by forcing yourself to say, how could I take 200 or 250 free days? How could I go to a beach house in the summer for 3 months? How could that be possible that I could take 6 weeks and go on a vacation? How is that possible, right? And we start thinking about, I got to create systems. I got to create processes. I'm going to have to outsource. I'm going to have to get more efficient. And I'm going to have to bring in more customers, because I can't pay these people without bringing in more. And this kind of business is going to require investments in who's. And I can be one of those who's, and outsourcing, automation, and then bringing in staff can be part of your strategy to be able to take 200, 250 free days. And I'm actually I've been thinking a lot about my 10X goals as well. The 2,000 members, clients, one-on-one clients that come easily, who I love working with. And that's been happening. I cannot tell you how many clients are just coming that I'm like, oh, how'd you find out about me? And they're like, let's go. I want to work with you. And it's so fun. And next year, for me, it is about taking more free days. It's about having more white space time. It's about having more creativity. It's about detaching from my business, but working smarter, not just more and more time. So my question to you is, what is your 10X goal? Let's throw away this little tiny goal and create this vision that you're excited about, that you're like, oh my gosh, that feels a little scary because it feels impossible and I might not hit it this year. I do encourage you to look at that 3-year vision, because I think that 3-year vision is far enough out that you can get a lot done. and it's going to narrow your focus, make the goal bigger, and then think about what is my 2024 goal that feeds into that 10x. Because oftentimes, 12 months, super arbitrary. Going after a 10x goal will most likely require more time. Another way you can do it, though, I will offer, is that you maybe don't make the revenue goal as large, but you shorten the time. So you're like, I'm going to go from 2 to 300K, but I'm going to do that in 4 months, right? How could that be possible? So sometimes we can shorten the time and play with that. But oftentimes I find that that puts a lot of pressure on people. So we have to be mindful of creating too short of timelines. But it's still a great thought exercise of how could you do it faster? All right. I'm excited. I hope that you consider going 10X. I'd love for you to come to this free workshop. Go to foodbizsuccess.com/10X, or you can get the replay at any time. And I'm going to really lay out this framework and give you a worksheet and some tools, and there'll be Q&A, and it's going to be a great time with fuel boxes as prizes. And I have some other really fun prizes, including I just got some new dream jars from a new potter. And if you listen last year in December, I talked about the dream jar, and I'm going to be giving away some of those. So I do hope you will join me on December 13th. And until next time, have an amazing week. The smartest thing you can do as an entrepreneur is to invest in a who to help you with the how, to speed up your journey and help you skip the line. When you are ready for more support and accountability to finally get this thing done, you can work with me in 2 ways. Get me all to yourself with one-on-one business coaching, or join Food Business Success, which includes membership inside Fuel, our community of food business founders that includes monthly live group coaching calls and so much more. It's one of my favorite places to hang out, and I would love to see you there. Go to foodbizsuccess.com to start your journey towards your own food business success. Just a reminder that you can come work with me inside Fuel for just $57 a month. You get to ask me questions on our group calls, and we have our community feed that you can get support from me and the community. Stop sitting around in confusion and doubt and slowing yourself down. Fuel is the fastest way to light things up and get some momentum in your business. It's the best way, if you aren't sure if this is for you, to come and ask me your questions, to get the answers and stop spinning out in overwhelm and anxiety, to get those questions answered by me. And then once you are launching or have your product, then you have community, then you have additional support. The learning never ends. It's not like you launch your business and then you have no other questions. You just have new questions. You have new problems to go solve. So come join me in Fuel, $57 a month. What are you waiting for? foodbizsuccess.com/fuel.